It started with something innocent, a movie night, a bowl of popcorn, a quiet evening at home. Then came the red logo, the black screen, and that sound. They told us it was freedom. Watch what you want, when you want. No schedules, no ads, no limits. But behind that promise was something far more powerful. This wasn't just a company, this was a machine. One that knew your every choice, every click, every craving. And it didn't just follow trends, it created them. It crushed a giant named Blockbuster. It rewrote the rules of Hollywood. It made stars out of algorithms. And slowly, without you noticing, it turned your habits into currency. Your time into product. Your attention into power. Because Netflix wasn't built to entertain. It was built to control. Behind every cliffhanger, there's a spreadsheet. Behind every binge-worthy series, there's a team racing to break your resistance. We didn't just invite Netflix into our homes, we gave it our minds. And the scariest part? We liked it. Now the next episode is just 5 seconds away. But before it plays, ask yourself, was this your choice or theirs? Before the red envelopes, before the global domination of streaming, there was just a boy, curious, quiet, calculated, and destined to challenge an empire. Wilmot Reed Hastings Jr. was born on October 8, 1960, in Boston, Massachusetts. His father, Wilmot Reed Hastings Sr., was no ordinary man. He worked in the administration of President Richard Nixon, a powerful figure in the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. His mother, Joan Amory Loomis, was a strong-willed woman. Reed grew up in a household of sharp minds and high expectations. But he wasn't the loudest voice in the room. He didn't dream of movies or media. He was obsessed with logic, numbers, systems, problems. In 1983, Reed earned a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Bowdoin College, a liberal arts school in Maine. But instead of going straight into the tech world, he chose a different path. He joined the Peace Corps and taught high school math in Swaziland, now Eswatini, Africa, for 2 years. It was there under the African sun that he learned patience, discipline, and the quiet power of building systems that work for people. When he returned, he pursued deeper technical mastery, earning a master's in computer science from Stanford University in 1988, one of the most prestigious programs in the world. By now, he was a software engineer, driven, smart, independent. "I'm not a natural entrepreneur," he once said, "but I'm a good learner. I learn from pain." That pain would come, but first, success. In 1991, he founded Pure Software, a company that built debugging tools for other developers. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't sexy, but it was valuable. "I was a terrible manager at first," Hastings admitted later. "I had no idea how to lead people." But he adapted, he learned. And in 1997, he sold Pure Software for $750 million. But then came a movie, and a fine. He rented Apollo 13 from Blockbuster, returned it late, and got hit with a $40 late fee. That tiny moment sparked a giant question. Why do I get punished for watching movies? He shared his frustration with a friend, Mark Randolph, and that's when the idea struck. What if we mailed DVDs like Amazon ships books? What if late fees were history? It was 1997. DVDs were new. Internet speeds were slow. Blockbuster had 9,000 stores. They had nothing, not even a company name. But they had conviction and a problem worth solving. So they started experimenting, packing DVDs into envelopes, testing postage times, studying how long it took to ship across states. And finally, they launched it. A tiny website, a massive risk. Netflix.com. But not everyone believed in their vision. In fact, in the year 2000, with losses piling up and the dot-com bubble bursting, Reed Hastings flew to Dallas and offered to sell Netflix to Blockbuster for $50 million. Blockbuster laughed. Literally. "That's a very cute little company," they said. It would become one of the most expensive mistakes in corporate history. It was clunky, unproven, easily ignored. But behind that simple interface, a revolution had begun. And the man who triggered it wasn't a showman, wasn't a mogul. He was a quiet, math-loving teacher who saw the flaw in the system and dared to rebuild it from scratch. The red envelopes had conquered Blockbuster, but Reed Hastings wasn't celebrating, because from the very beginning, DVDs were never the end game. They were just the on-ramp. But to get there, Netflix had to first build the habit, the user base, the ecosystem. DVDs were the bait. And so, in the early years, Netflix operated on a per-rental model, just like Blockbuster. But in September 1999, they made a bold pivot. A flat-fee monthly subscription. No due dates, no late fees, no limits. By 2000, the old model was dead. The binge economy was born. But even in that DVD era, the algorithm was learning. So what did Netflix do? It quietly slowed down their deliveries, a subtle nudge, a warning from the machine. In the background, something else was brewing. A small experimental division called Red Envelope Entertainment. It quietly licensed indie films, funded underground projects, and tiptoed into content ownership. It was Netflix's first taste of control, but the real breakthrough was still buffering. By 2007, Netflix stood at the top of the DVD rental world. Profitable, growing, admired, but Reed was already planning the demolition of his own empire. And so they did what no sane company would. They set fire to the business that made them rich. They launched Watch Now, Netflix's first streaming product. The world wasn't ready, neither was the internet. But Hastings didn't care about now. He cared about next. At one point, Netflix even built a hardware device, a Netflix box that would download movies overnight for next-day viewing. But then came YouTube, low-res, chaotic, addictive. Hastings pulled the plug and spun the project off into a little startup called Roku. Instead of controlling hardware, Netflix would control everything else. At first, the content was garbage, rejected TV pilots, expired licenses. But Netflix didn't need blockbusters. What it needed was data. And that's exactly what it got. Millions of users, thousands of signals per second, tracked, analyzed, converted into fuel. So Netflix made its boldest move yet. It became a studio, not a traditional one. No suits, no gatekeepers, just a machine, feeding on behavior, spitting out stories. Its first original, House of Cards. No pilot, no test audience, just a model that said, political drama, Kevin Spacey, David Fincher, green light. It was a hit. Then came the wave, Orange is the New Black, Narcos, BoJack Horseman, and dozens more. So Netflix went global. Money Heist from Spain, Dark from Germany, Sacred Games from India, Kingdom from South Korea, dubbed, subtitled, localized, and launched in 190+ countries. Netflix didn't just save the show, it resurrected it and rewrote how the TV industry measured success. Hollywood watched in silence. Theaters bled, cable scrambled, and Netflix, it poured billions into content. More shows, more formats, more languages, more time, stolen from everyone else. The old question was, what should we watch tonight? Now it's, what will Netflix decide we want to watch next? The company that once mailed DVDs now shapes desire. No borders, no censors, no limits, just code. And a countdown timer. That starts before you can even look away. On the surface, it's perfect. A sleek app, a glowing screen, infinite stories, just one click away. But behind that perfect experience is a machine. And it runs on more than electricity. It runs on people. People the algorithm doesn't show you. Netflix built itself on a promise. More freedom, more stories, more choice. But someone has to make those stories. And in the shadows of this streaming utopia, cracks began to show. Writers pushed to meet impossible deadlines, animators burned out under last-minute revisions, crew members working 14-hour days just to meet an algorithm's deadline. Because when data decides the pace, humanity is an afterthought. Behind Netflix's bold originals, glossy documentaries, and global hits, there are hundreds of uncredited hands racing to keep up with a system that never sleeps. Shows are greenlit not by passion, but by prediction. Shot schedules aren't set by directors, but by audience heat maps. There's no room for slow-burn storytelling, no space for art to breathe. Only metrics, only completion rates, only watch-through curves. The result? A culture of crunch, burnout, and silence. In 2021, creators and writers began to speak up. Anonymous testimonies leaked. Studios accused Netflix of demanding impossible delivery times, all to feed the insatiable hunger of its content treadmill. Even high-profile creators felt the heat. When you work with Netflix, one insider said, you're not just making a show, you're feeding a machine that never stops eating. Then came the strikes. Writers, animators, editors, tired of being treated like disposable code, demanding fair pay, protection, dignity. But Netflix, now a content empire, had become something bigger than a studio. Netflix's algorithm doesn't just serve the audience, it shapes it. Tells creators what to write, tells users what to watch, tells the industry what to fear. They said you had control, that you were free to choose. But if you've ever said, just one more episode, then you already know it wasn't your idea. Netflix built its empire on convenience. No ads, no schedules, no waiting. But hidden beneath that silky interface is a carefully constructed psychological trap. Every show you watch, every moment you pause, rewind, skip, or rewatch, they see it, they store it, and they use it against you. This isn't a streaming platform, it's a behavioral lab, and you are the subject. Netflix doesn't just know what you watch, it knows when you're most vulnerable, which hour of the day you give in, what genre you turn to when you're sad, which thumbnails make you click without thinking. Every detail, every click fed into an I trained not to inspire, but to hook. The countdown? Not a timer, a trigger, a moment too short for logic, and just long enough for impulse. Sleep disrupted, focus fragmented, dopamine hijacked. The world got tired, tired of watching, tired of paying, tired of endless choice with nothing to love. Other platforms rose: Disney+, HBO Max, Prime Video, Apple TV+. Subscriber growth stalled, password sharing became a crime, shows were cancelled mid-story, originals felt hollow. Netflix had disrupted everything, but now faced its own disruption. The question was no longer what's next to watch. It was, is there anything left to feel? And the final twist, Netflix promised to set us free. But maybe what it built was a cage, a beautifully designed, binge-worthy, data-optimized cage. So before the next episode starts, ask yourself, are you watching Netflix, or is Netflix watching you? It began with a single moment, a forgotten VHS tape, a $40 fine, and a question no one had asked before. From that frustration, Netflix was born. It rewrote the rules of entertainment. It buried giants. It built an empire on code, but the truth is harder to watch. Behind every autoplay was an algorithm. Behind every global hit, an exhausted crew. Netflix didn't just change Hollywood, it changed us, our habits, our attention spans. Did Netflix give us what we wanted, or teach us to want what it had to give?